The views and opinions expressed during Love and Life with Lana and Dave are those only of the speakers and guests and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or the position of our podcast hosts or affiliates. Any content provided is not intended to malign any religion, ethnic group, club, organization, company, individual, anyone, or anything. All right, let's do it.
You're listening to Love and Life with Lana and Dave, the podcast where logic is power and you take control. Thank you for tuning in, making the choice to listen in and get ideas for your own love and life. Now, here are your hosts, Lana Williams and David Vaccaro. I'm Dave.
I'm Lana.
Yes, you are.
And today we are talking about red flags.
Ooh.
Yeah.
It's going to be an interesting
It's a little fun topic.
It is a fun topic.
It will be interesting.
It's going to be light because most of it's bullshit. In my opinion.
Right.
Well,
I think the beginning of this should be the origin of the word red flag, like what it means, seems to mean to people now, because we had our show notes earlier, we discussed
right.
where red flag turned into something that is used so often,
right.
so commonly.
And that's why I refer to it as bullshit, because it's
right.
it became a keyword. And keywords today are just so,
or a crutch or something.
Yeah,
like that,
it's a key phrase that people way overuse, just like other things that we had talked about in the past,
right?
In our private conversations. I think that,
which I bet you all wish you could hear.
I know, right?
Oh,
so secret. You know,
yes.
Mystery. Maybe we should do a Patreon and just have conversations and let people listen to our conversations about what podcast we're going to do. You know, you guys would be freaking mortified.
A podcast about the podcast,
right? It's we
yeah, they would be.
It's not even right. It would just be our personal conversations that get us to where we're at.
Oh my goodness!
And
well, those are usually littered with like identities and activities and
right.
You know, things.
Yeah,
that
so that's
really no, but
yeah. Well,
so,
we could. You know. I mean, look, it's easy for us to have a conversation because the only problem is that we'd be like, you know who I'm talking about, right? And we wouldn't say the name, so you guys might get a little frustrated because we won't throw somebody under the bus. We won't give names of what we're talking about or anything like that. Now, somebody may listen to our podcast and go, they're talking about me. And yeah, probably. And that's okay.
Right.
And
I will say this, though, for the people that do recognize their story, they're more than welcome to come on with us and correct their story or elaborate on their story. Or
absolutely.
Whatever. Now, that's their personal decision. But we're more than happy to.
You want to debate our psychology about you? Psychological thoughts about you? Please do, by all stretches.
Right.
So red flags, I tend to believe that they're crap because I think everybody uses everything as a red flag, right? And Lana, go ahead, and because we talked a little bit about it, and she's got it down to what a red flag used to be and what it means to people that are older. Now, you may say, well, you're older, things change. Yeah, but you can't just blanket statement everybody, right?
Right.
If you think a red flag is, oh, well, this guy...
Just something you don't like.
Yeah, something you don't like.
It's just something you don't like.
That's not a red flag. That's just you being honest with yourself and what you want, and that's not a red flag. It doesn't make that person a bad person. Remember something. Just because, okay, for example, I'm not a big fan of blondes. I prefer somebody with dark hair. Okay, does that mean a blonde is... Red flag. She's got blonde hair. No, it's not a red flag. Today it would be used like that. They would say, she's a blonde. She's red, or she's this. I love this one where people go, oh, I would never date a Scorpio. Well, I'm a Scorpio, so yeah. So and they think that they have it down pat. And I listened to them. I said, describe a Scorpio. I actually said this to somebody last night, and I said, describe a Scorpio. And she's saying all this stuff, and I go, yeah, none of that is me, none whatsoever. Like zero.
Well, not only that, but one, if you believe in horoscopes, which I don't necessarily live my life by them, they're kind of a fun thing to do.
Sure, of course.
But would you base your dating life on it? Would you base your decisions on it?
There are people that do.
I know they do.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they don't. I'm just saying I personally wouldn't go that far.
Right.
I would just say, oh, this is kind of a fun topic. Let's discuss it.
Right.
You know, but even if, let's say, horoscopes were actually valid and we could count on them, then you would say every Scorpio as a whole would be within a spectrum, right?
Correct.
This is my analytical mind.
Yes.
So if you're a Scorpio, that you could be completely. You got to realize that you've got a sign on both sides of the Scorpio. So there are people who lean towards Leo, I believe, which is before Scorpio, and people that lean after Scorpio, I believe. I'm not.
I don't even know. So
my coffee.
You could be right. You could be wrong, and so.
But there's a sign on both sides of Scorpio, and people who are closer to the next sign are going to display signs for the next sign. If this is the way you want to do it, where you want to just say a person is their sign and nothing else, then you've got to deviate between the signs. So you're going to say, okay, well, Scorpio, somebody dead in the center of the Scorpio time frame should be
which is me,
on the side,
right? I'm October 31st, which I think is pretty smack dab in the middle of Scorpionism.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Or so, something like that. So again, somebody being a Scorpio is just not one set of traits. It would be, where is that person landing in the calendar? How close are they to the sign on either side? Yeah. And then
So I mean, one of the traits of a Scorpio, and this is not what we're talking about today,
supposedly.
But supposedly, right, is they're very jealous and possessive. Now, people that know me will tell you, I am probably annoyingly not jealous or possessive. I don't like to say somebody's mine. I hate that with a passion.
I dated a Scorpio for a very long time.
Yeah. So and people vary.
He was not.
It's people. People vary.
Exactly.
It's people.
It's he's probably one of the most secure guys.
It all stems from childhood. Remember that.
So let's go back to red flags, because you know how Dave and I like to go off to the
and this is a fun one today. So it is. You're going to have to deal with it. So we don't have to go
crazy over it. But what red flags used to be. And maybe before Dave and I were born, red flags were some completely other thing as well. But when we were growing up, red flags were a danger sign. It was something that would actually cause you harm if you continued. They were a thing that they were the canary in the coal mine. Ha, you like that?
I do.
In the sense that if you saw something, you could see it escalating as time went on, but you could sort of see the beginnings of something that you really didn't want to deal with. So I wrote down some stuff here because I do my notes, right? It's not much. I only have a tiny little.
Oh, that's good.
I have like 5 lines of for me, this is like, I'm really coasting by the seat of my pants here. If I go out with somebody, I'm going to bring up dating. Of course, there's other places where you can find red flags. But if you're dating somebody in the beginning, you're dating somebody. I've had friends that have said to me, well, I went out with this girl and we went to a restaurant and everything was great. And then, she just got so drunk that, she was throwing up in my car. And, if you meet somebody in the first date, they're toasted and sloppy, and you're just holding them up so they can walk. That's a big red flag.
That might be a red flag. Yeah, right.
That's a red flag, especially hey, because you would hope that somebody that you first met and a first date, not that you have to try to go out of your way to impress somebody, but you would think that they would at least make an effort to stay conscious and coherent on the first time that they meet you, that somewhat for their own sake, because you want to, you want them to, they want to give you an impression of who they are, but also because they might want to know who you are.
Well, maybe she did. I mean, she was being honest with who she was. That's for sure.
And that's fine.
And that to me is not. So, okay. So to me, is it a red flag? Of course. It may be a showstopper. But
it's something you want. The sooner you find something out, the better, right? So absolutely. I agree with that, right? Yeah. But also, for the other person, for the person seeing the behavior, for them it's a red flag. We're just discussing what it actually means to be in the visual of a red flag and what it looks like and what it should be. Or what we grew up thinking it was.
Right.
So for me, if I go out with a guy and he had 2 drinks in, he's trying to punch somebody, I'm done. That's a red flag for me.
Right, of course. And that means he's a violent person, and that would be a red flag.
You can't control his whatever. Right. You can't keep together.
Well, they say the truth comes out when you're drunk, and I tend to believe that a little bit because
that'll be our next show about brains. There's receptors and all.
Yes, that's going to be a good one. We're actually going to have our first guest soon. Ooh,
yes,
exciting! I think it's next week's episode, I believe.
It's next week's episode. Next week's episode. I can't talk because I'm still half asleep.
No,
but
I've been up. I got up early this morning, so I'm
things
ready.
Like alcoholism or sloppiness and people being irresponsible and prone to violence. These type of things are things you want to know as soon as possible.
Right.
And as you see signs of them, let's be honest, you probably don't even want to hang around to see whether or not they're actually happening or not. You just want to kind of get out of get out of Dodge.
Yeah.
And to me, that's a red flag.
That's a legitimate red flag, right? So we have red flags, like I said, now where people will be like, oh, it's a red flag. This is a red flag. That's a red flag. Everything's a red flag, right? And
let's say somebody's a smoker.
Yeah.
I'll use that.
Is that a red flag, or is that
somebody?
Just, I'm a smoker.
It's just a trait that you don't.
Correct. You don't
necessarily want to live with.
Yeah, it's a trait you don't
like. It's not dangerous.
Yeah, it's
not to you.
Right. And if you choose not to date a smoker, then you don't date me. That's all. It's not a red flag. Doesn't make me less of a person. Stop it. And
right.
And I don't take it. I don't give two shits if somebody says, "Oh, you threw a red flag." I've never actually heard it. I generally get along with everybody because I don't do the whole dating thing. I do things a little bit different. And I think we're going to do a podcast about that for our next fun one. I think we're going to do, how to approach people and expectations of what to expect when you do approach somebody and how to get attention from people.
And the thing I wanted to bring up here real quick while he's saying that, before I forget, is in this day and age in society, based on some conversations I've had recently, it's almost impossible to approach people in public. There's something going on, obviously with this way the society is skewed, that people are not as receptive to just a stranger walking up to them in a public place as they used to be.
Right.
So
especially after COVID, COVID did change a lot. Of things.
Yeah,
people tend to keep them themselves now, and they're treating real life like it's So here's a thing that used to drive me crazy on Facebook. People would be like, "Don't come in my DMs and talk to me." It's like, okay, I want to say something to you in private, and if you were out in a bar somewhere and I saw you, I would approach you and come talk to you, right? And that was accepted. And then all of a sudden, Facebook came along, and now all of a sudden, trying to talk to me like have a private conversation with me is no longer warranted. You cannot do it anymore. And it became a bad thing. And, people are like, what gives you the right to blah, blah, blah? Or I'm like, it's a public forum and this is where we go to have a private conversation. And, and I hear people saying, posting things about stay out of my DMs, you're not invited and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, this is strange.
Well, I will say
why would you friend somebody you don't know unless you want to get to know them? Right? That's
right.
my
question. I understand that. I think for me, and I'm just going to say this as a female online, this is my take on it. Mm-hmm. It depends. If I'm in a group somewhere and we're discussing a topic, and somebody I'm not friends with, jumps into my DMs, goes, "Hey, how you doing?" and then it's just vulgar. This is really, I think, what most women are worried. This is what they don't like. And I'm not saying, listen, you're on a computer. I mean, they're not a threat to your life or anything, but still,
right.
It's uncouth and it doesn't necessarily need to happen, but there are people who will start talking to you in DMs about things that you don't want to discuss that don't know you. And I think that's what
different.
Most of the friends that I know that don't like it, this is what they're referring
to.
Like
we'll talk about this in another time, I think, too, because I think, like, for example, a dick pic doesn't make any sense to me. You go to a total stranger and send her a picture of your junk. Would you walk up to somebody in a bar and just whip it out? Because you go to prison.
No, but I told you, Dave, I believe that the dick pic is a rerouted or what do you want to call it? It moved from one area to another. There were guys that were that would expose themselves publicly. That was a thing.
Correct, of course.
And I believe that that's moved. I believe that these are the same people, and now they've just found a new place to go. It's the same.
Yeah, and they don't get arrested for it. Yeah. So
yeah, they're just going where they think they can. It's definitely. Yeah. It's not. I'm not saying that it's exactly that, but I think.
Right.
And I think that there are a lot of guys that probably wouldn't have done it in public because it was more dangerous for them to do it.
They didn't want to get arrested.
They're okay to do it in private.
Yeah.
Wouldn't have done it.
It's kind of like prostitution. When it was legal in Rhode Island, a lot more people went, to the rub and tugs or the massage, the Asian massage parlors. Everybody was cool with it. There's no chance of getting arrested. So go there. And that was, they became very popular until they changed the law, and then, they slowed way down again. So yeah, anything like that. So, okay. Yeah. We're way off topic, and that's perfectly fine for this episode.
I'm going to explain 2 red flags to you, Dave, that I thought they were red flags based on the way that I look at them. One of them was, I was out on a date with a guy for a while. It's been a long time. It's probably been 10, 15 years at least. And we're sitting there and we're having a conversation. And at the time, actually, it's been a really long time because I had a cat at the time that was she was sick. Something was going on with her and I didn't know. She was kind of at her end of life, I believe, at the time. I was upset about it. And I was trying to figure out what to do and whatever. That was just sort of happened to be a subject of at dinner because I was worried about it. And he said to me, well, I have a dog right now. For whatever reason, he had a dog that he took everywhere with him. So the dog was in his truck at the time. I don't know, while we were sitting there eating. He said, I love my dog and everything, but if anything ever happened to her, I'd shoot her and get one that looks just like her. Red flag. Have a nice day.
Wow,
bye-bye. That was something that I heard, and I said, okay. Some people, I'm telling you, you'll be sitting at dinner, no matter whether you're a guy or girl, and somebody will just nonchalantly drop a bomb like that, and they won't even, their facial expression won't even change, and you'll be like, ooh, you almost don't even know if you heard it right. And so that was one of the red flags where I was like, okay, I'd shoot her, and I was talking about whether I take my cat to the vet, and I think we were talking about something about vet costs too at the time. And he said, well, I would never pay a vet for my dog. I would just shoot my dog and get a whole nother one that looked just like her. I mean, I think my jaw must have hit the table.
Yeah, that's a person. Definitely a red flag. That's somebody that has like no emotional connection at all to anything.
I guess. Sometimes people say things to shock you. I don't know whether you're trying to be cool about it. I don't know, but it was just like I was a check, please. That.
I don't know how that's cool.
I don't either. But I got to tell you, with the stuff with the social activity that I've dealt with in my life, and the people that I've met, and everything else, with all the places I've worked, I have seen some really crazy, weird stuff. And I've had people say stuff to me that they thought made all kinds of sense, and I was just like, "What did you just say?" So, and it's really weird that people are strange when you're a stranger. But the other one that I had was somebody that I was talking about a book that I had read, and he just stopped in the middle of the conversation and said, I've never read a book, and I would never read a book. I think that's the biggest waste of time that you could ever, like, he was mad about it. And I went, okay, that's a red flag to me. Because he was so angry about it.
Right.
And because not only did he not, I have to say this, if you don't like something that somebody's doing.
So what? I
see this on dating sites a lot. If you don't want something, that's okay. It's your preference.
Correct.
So if I say, hey, listen, I want a guy with green eyes, and that's my thing, and that's my preference to say I want a guy with green eyes. But if I insult everybody that doesn't have green eyes and say something wrong with them, now that's a problem. That's me. There's some kind of weird thing going on with me where I visually, or I put a paragraph about people that don't have green eyes and how, whatever.
Yeah, I insult
them all in some way.
Yeah.
So when you say to me, hey, listen, I don't read a book and I never would, that's okay.
Correct.
But then you got to go beyond that and say, well, I think it's the biggest waste of time ever. And I think
in other words, you're wasting your time, and he has to put in his opinion about, I don't read. I don't. I don't find it to be a waste of time. It's just something that I can't get into. I wish I could.
Right.
I mean, I read books for learning. I never read a book cover to cover. It's not my style. I use them for reference. Right. And I have a lot of books, but they're mostly for reference.
I'll tell you this: if you use book for reference,
yeah.
I was a really, really avid reader until I went through my degree, and my degree killed me. Like, I had to go through so many books for 4 years to get my degree that it killed my interest in reading for a really long time.
Yeah.
So it could be possibly why. If you were always into reference guides and stuff, you probably never really wanted to read it. Probably killed your.
Right.
You did all the reading you could do, so you didn't have any enjoyable interest in reading.
Right.
That did kill me.
I mean, I love when I see somebody sit and just read a book and my mind just won't do it. I mean, that's just
and that's cool. But now, to me,
I'll read the same paragraph 45 times and still be thinking about something else. My mind is not capable of.
I mean, if I meet a guy and he's not a reader, I'll say, well, then how do you normally get your information? That's something I need to know. You don't have to be a reader of a book, but you have to want knowledge from somewhere, and you have to tell me what your avenue is to get it.
Yeah.
Oh, I like watching documentaries on the History Channel. Oh, okay. I like sci-fi interest stuff, or I like to listen to podcasts or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But if you're a person that doesn't seek any kind of knowledge ever, now that's a problem. You don't have to be a reader for me, but you have to be.
Now,
there has to be a media.
It's not a red flag, people, okay, it is something that you prefer not to be with. That does not make that person a bad person. It just makes them somebody you're not compatible with. That's not a red flag.
Right.
Now, it all goes back to honesty, right, with yourself.
Right.
And because I'm a firm believer that if you're honest with yourself, you're honest with everybody else too. But when you can learn to be honest with yourself, and I think that it's a form of freedom. And it also allows you to understand that everybody's different, right? And I'm not looking for somebody that's identical to me. I'm not looking for anything like that. I'm looking for somebody who fits my list. And we will definitely be talking about that. And me and Lana will actually be doing a podcast on, do you have a list of things that you want in a relationship, or things that are total like killers for you? Like, I don't want to be with somebody that smokes pot, but is it a total killer for me? Probably not. Right? I don't think it's one of those things that's just like, okay, unless she smokes pot like all day, every day, and she's high all the time.
And just not doing anything else.
Yeah. So, because I hate lazy. I hate that. And, you know,
So your thing is not pot. Your thing is lack of ambition.
Correct. And that's definitely something that I noticed with most, and I won't say all, because I do have some friends that smoke pot and they're very motivated. But I also have a lot of friends that smoke pot that are not motivated at all. So, and I see it. And I've seen motivated people switch over and they start doing this dabs, which is high THC. And I watch them over a matter of weeks let their life go in the shitter. And, you know, people are like, oh, it's not the pot. I go, yeah, it is. Certain people can handle certain things. Some people cannot. Now, that is something that I have to see for myself because it matters to me. And that's just, is it a red flag? No, it's not. It's a preference. It doesn't make you a bad person. Red flags should be reserved for people that are not good people. Right?
Or that are just dangerous.
That's what you're not a good person if you're dangerous, right? I mean,
exactly.
Yeah.
Well, the same. Yeah.
If you're an abusive person, you're not a good person, and that's what I associate red flags with, right? So if I see a woman that treats her mother like shit, chances are pretty good that's a red flag for me because she's probably going to treat me like shit too, and that's not an option at all, and it shouldn't be an option for anybody. So. To me, a red flag is something that shouldn't be an option. A red flag should be triggered by every single person in the planet, in my opinion. Right. When you're looking to date somebody, right?
It's being able to see something, early on. If you don't want, none of us want to be with an abuser, but I'm saying some of us actually know what the traits at the beginning of abuse is, which is, isolationism and, I don't like what you're wearing and, all the things.
Control.
There's certain things that they will do in the beginning.
Because abuse is not just physical, right? Yeah.
Right. It's emotional. It's mental. There's a lot of that stuff going on. So at the beginning, when they start to have opinions a certain way, there's a certain couple of traits in the beginning that you can say, okay, well, these are traits that whether this person's abusive or not, they're not traits that are healthy for a relationship. So I think I need to see you later.
Right.
But most of them are generally pointing to a later abusive relationship or somebody that.
Or even a failure, a relationship that can't possibly happen because of this
or
red
can't be
flag.
healthy. Can happen, but can't be anything.
Right, and everybody deserves a healthy relationship. What's the point of a relationship if it's not healthy? You know what I mean?
I don't know.
It's like having a heart transplant and going, hey, give me a shitty heart that somebody already almost died from a heart disease. Put that in there. That doesn't even make sense, right?
I know.
You wouldn't do that, but yet you'd bring somebody into your life that should be, in my opinion, it should be a pretty stable, happy life before you get involved with somebody else. Why would you take that perfectly happy life and then bring somebody in that wrecks it or makes it worse?
Right.
People are like, well, relationships are a lot of work. They're worth working for. And I'm like, no, they shouldn't be a lot of work. That's, the work that I do is on me. The work you should do is on you. And then when we get together, it's not a lot of work, right?
Right.
It's something that we both choose to do. Look.
Well, they shouldn't be a lot of work in the sense that you're having a hard time doing it, or it's
right.
I can't explain it, but people explain work like, well, it's not easy. It should be hard. It should be hard.
Right.
And it shouldn't be hard.
Anything worth having
it should
is
be
difficult.
stuff that you want to
No,
do.
that's
and
not true.
Yeah, I know.
You
Well,
know?
that's the thing.
Right.
Anything worth having is worth effort, but the
Of course.
effort should
Effort
be
is not
what kind of a person am I and how am I in this relationship? And
Yes.
then both people being healthy with who they are and then saying each other,
Right.
hey, let's sit down and let's make sure we're courteous to each other about the things that are important
Of course.
to us. That's really the only thing you would be working on.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Or building your empire. That's a little
Yeah,
bit more.
yeah,
But
of
other
course.
than that,
And that's so like work ethic and stuff like that. That's totally different than a relationship, right? Does a
Right.
relationship truly take like a lot of work? Not really. It takes effort, of course. It takes effort. You know, you want to make sure that your significant other is happy with how things are going. And, you know, does it really take that much time or effort to have a conversation if something's bothering you? No, it's not that difficult. You have the conversation.
I think it's the difference between do you want to do it? Are you with somebody that you really want to be
Right.
with? And are they really a good match for you? And so for that, you do it, but you don't mind doing it.
If it's a lot of effort, chances are
versus-
pretty good you're trying to change something, right?
Or yeah, you're just really not in the right one.
Right,
I think
exactly.
if that's how you're doing it,
Exactly.
where you're sweating over it.
Yeah.
You must be just not be in something that is. If it's not easy, then it's not. I don't know.
Right.
It's your attitude towards the work, not what you're doing.
Right. It's like what I do for work, for a living. Is it difficult? Of course it is. Do I enjoy it? Yes, I do. And it's not, to me, it's not a lot of hard work. It's effort, a lot of effort for sure.
Discipline, effort. Yep.
And it's discipline and stuff like that. Sure. And so if you're in a good relationship, there's discipline, right? I can't go out and cheat. I have to maintain what I want to do. And with this person, what I said I'd do.
But you also don't want to cheat, so that's an easy.
Correct.
thing for you
It's
to do.
very easy to do. Yeah, exactly. Just like my job. It's like what I love to do. So it's very easy for me.
Well, they say if you love your job, you never work a day in your life.
That's
you know
that's
that.
true. To a certain point, I love my job.
Right.
I do bust my ass. There's no question. But a relationship
but-
shouldn't be difficult, right? If it's difficult, chances are pretty good you're trying to fit a square peg in a round hole. That's difficult.
Here we go.
Right? Yes, it
Let's
is.
saw off the edge of that square.
That's right.
No, we don't want to go down
and
that.
that's
We've
a
had
lot
that
of work,
podcast already.
right? That you should have a round peg going into a round hole, and if you don't, you got the wrong peg,
Right.
or the wrong hole.
Right.
You need to figure it out. But
One or the other.
yeah. Either way, it's not. And again, you are not even noticing. And again, they're not all red flags, right? So,
No.
like I said, I struggle with that word today because of the way it's used.
Well, like anything else,
Every
any kind of a
word
term that really
used to mean something.
specifically addresses one thing,
Right.
And it's too bad with red flags because that's one of those words that would be, if it was used correctly, would actually be, it's a productive word to use, but it's just
Right.
blanketed to describe everything, and so therefore it loses its value
It
and
does.
its meaning.
It does lose its value, and we were talking about that. And I had somebody recently tell me that the last 5 guys they dated were what's the word? We were just talking about it.
Abusive?
Nope. It's the personality disorder that cannot be
Narcissistic. Narcissistic,
Yeah.
excuse me.
And so you did not.
They can't be. They couldn't be.
Right. I even had somebody tell me the other day, she goes, oh, he even admitted he was a narcissist. And I go, no, wrong. If he's a narcissist, he would never admit it because they don't know they're a narcissist. It's the only personality disorder that cannot be cured, which is really interesting, right? A narcissist does not know that they are one. Nor would they ever.
Well, if you don't know what your problem is, you can never fix
Correct.
it. And narcissists
And they can
will not, don't know it and would never
Right.
entertain the thought of
Correct.
that.
That's part of it is they think that
Yeah.
they're beyond even being anything like that. And they don't do what they do on purpose. It's a personality disorder that they don't know that they have. And it's,
Right.
and it's funny because people will be like, oh, they can change. No, they can't. A narcissist, a true one, cannot change. They cannot. And that's psychology 101.
the only way to the only way to deal with a narcissist is to really cut contact. That's really the only way to heal or to deal with.
I mean, I have a
unless-
friend who is one, and but I deal with him in a certain way where I just stop the conversation. I'll be like, stop talking, shut up.
Well, you're not in a place where
correct. He's
there are
not
people who
my
are in a place
girlfriend,
with
right. He's
or your family or anything. That's
right.
the thing.
And
some of us have family members
I could never live with him. I could never. anything like that.
Well, I saw you try and it didn't go very well.
And I love him. He's a good person. It's just he's difficult, and I can see relationships being a very big struggle for him. And I feel bad for him because he doesn't know, and nor will he ever know.
Right.
And he could listen to this podcast and be like, "Not talking about me,"
Right.
And because he would never even gather that he's that, or that I even think that he's one. I've never called him one. I'm not a name caller. I'm not one of these that go, yeah, narcissist. It doesn't help anything. You can call a narcissist. It's not going to change anything, because they don't know they are one, and they will never believe, even if a psychotherapist had them laying on a couch and told them that they were, they would be like, that guy doesn't know what he's talking about. He's just, it's typical society. Just got to put me somewhere where I don't belong, and that's exactly what they would think. And it's crazy to me.
Hey, I don't really like labels. I don't like labels.
Yeah. So it's interesting. However, it's very that's a red flag, right? Because it's almost impossible to be in a relationship with one. That would be a red flag.
I mean, not unless you're completely subservient, and who wants to do that?
Right.
And even when you are, I come from a family. I'm not saying my entire family is narcissists, but I was raised by, my mom was typically, I believe, narcissist. And
she sounds like she was. Yep.
There's no, there's a way to deal with them. I mean, for me, I always say the red flag for me is very obvious in seeing someone coming down the pike. There are things that they do, and I say, oh, okay. I smile and go, to myself, nope. I can see it coming, and I don't really even engage.
Well, yeah, me either.
In the beginning, so but I'm used to the traits. I'm very used to the traits from being a kid.
Exactly. So here's something. I've dated a lot in my life. Yeah, I would say so. I've never dated one ever.
Me neither.
Nope, never.
Well, I don't know.
No,
not really.
No,
not for very long.
I never did. I've met some, but I've never been involved with any. Zero.
Right.
I had a friend, only one, that is, and that's okay. It's just, where does the relationship, how does it work? And it can work. It just, in a relationship though, being around that every day is going to destroy you. Right. So that should be a red flag.
Right. I mean, you're basically signing yourself up for a lot of worship.
Yes.
A lot of self-blaming.
Yep.
A lot of twisted narrative.
You're never going to have a conversation with that person where you can say, hey, this is what's going on. So a narcissist is the type of person that you'll go, listen, you owe me an apology. And they'll go, well, I'm sorry that you feel like that. Right? I'm sorry that you misunderstood me. I'm sorry that they will never say, I'm sorry for being an ass.
Or why should I apologize for something that you made me do or caused me to do? There's a lot of the bouncing back to you of something that
100% of the time.
They'll never do anything on their own. It's always somebody that forced them to do it or created a situation where they had to do it or whatever.
Exactly. So, and what they did is never wrong. It's what needed to be done, and they were right. And that should be a red flag. And I know that that's not what today's topic is about, but it is about red flags. But
this is how Dave and I are.
Yeah, so. We decided that we were going to do a fun one today. So this is kind of an open-ended type of conversation with red flags being the majority. So we're looking at red flags, and then we're kind of analyzing different ones, and that's what we're doing. Yep. So if you see a true red flag, the key is like a real red flag, not one of these new societal red flags where it's just silliness. Some people look for everything and call it a red flag. And I've seen people say, oh, well, he said this. He said some words, and that's a red flag. It's like, wait, did you ask him what he meant by that? Or did you ask her what she meant by that? Because no, it may not be a red flag. It may be you misunderstanding and throwing it and saying it's a red flag, right? So, and you posted something today, Lana, which was very interesting because I used to say this all the time in a relationship where somebody would get mad at me and I go, what are you mad at? and they'll say, well, you said this and it hurt my feelings. And I go, just so you know, never in my life, if I love somebody, I will never, well, I don't do it anyway, but I will never say something to purposely hurt somebody. If I hurt somebody and I tell them, I used to say to them, if there's two ways to take something, whether it's a text or something I say, if there's two ways to take it, one of them will hurt you and the other one won't. It's the way I meant it, the way that it won't hurt you, because I will never purposely hurt you, ever.
Right.
So, to me, if I say something and it hurts you, ask me what I meant by it. Chances are pretty good you're going to go, oh, I thought you meant this, because I'm not that person. And, a lot of people will just say, they just take it and run with it. And it's like, damn, you're beating the shit out of me for saying something and you misunderstood me completely. And, the problem is that you will beat me up for something that you misunderstood. So always ask. And that will be key.
And my post was, if you're walking around frustrated by something I did, then I'm not trying to fix it, then I'm probably not aware of what it is that you think I'm doing.
Right.
And if you need to talk to me about it, then bring it up and talk to me. I don't understand why anybody wouldn't come to me and say, you did this thing, you said this thing, whatever it is that, I'll walk around and live my life. And Dave will tell you I'm pretty popular with triggering people on some stuff that they don't like. And, I say things, I'm pretty gruff and I'm pretty, there's all kinds of brash and all kinds of terms that people call me, but I don't sugarcoat and I won't hold your hand through a conversation. So if I say something that you think is meant to offend you or meant to insult you, it's usually never my intention to do that. And how you took it, I would not know unless you told me. So I'm just going to absolve myself of the
right
of the responsibility of like how you might take something. Because I can't. There's no way I can predict that. And if hopefully everybody in my life is aware of the fact that they can conversate with me about, or they can bring up the thing that's bothering them. I mean, this is communication to me. I might be tough to approach with stuff like that, or people think I am. But I mean, I'll respect somebody a million times over if they come in straight to me and say, what did you mean by this thing you said? I would much rather sit down and have that conversation.
If somebody doesn't come to you and just assumes
thought I meant something else,
that's a them problem at this point.
It is, and I'm just saying
this is what people have to realize too. And again, we're off topic here, but again, this is how you handle certain red flags or what you believe to be a red flag. If you have a problem, talk about it. Ask.
Exactly. And I see people doing this in conversation. It'll tell me something that's like, oh, there's no way they meant anything else. Oh, really? Okay.
Did you ask?
So I'll ask them. Yeah. Hey, do you sound like you know more about this story than the rest of us? So share. You seem to have some inside information.
Correct. Yeah.
And if they get mad about that, it's kind of like, well, you engaging with a conversation with that person to find out if that's what they meant.
Right.
Why would that be a problem?
Right.
Sure, there are people that are going to lie and be like, oh, no, they'll hurt you and then tell you that that's not what they were doing. Mm-hmm. That's a whole other story.
Of course. But that's a narcissist trait.
There's no reason why you can't.
That's a trait of a narcissist. They will hurt you on purpose and be like, yeah, this is your fault. And that's what brought us to here is because we were talking about that. But there are legitimate times where somebody will say, I didn't mean it that way. You took it the wrong way. And that's completely legitimate. Like, I will tell you that, I actually wanted to find out, and I did a lot of research on narcissism, which to see if I was possibly one, which is a wonderful thing, because I found out that by doing the research to find out if I was one.
By asking yourself, you
can't be. By even questioning myself, I can't be one, which is phenomenal. And that's how I found out that by questioning it, I couldn't be one, which is interesting in itself. Ask a narcissist, have you ever checked to see if they're gonna say, either they're gonna lie and say they did and they're not, or they're gonna just say, why would I do that? I know I'm not a narcissist. It's just, it's a word. And, so...
minimization. That's one of the fun things.
A true narcissist will be a professional at everything, and even doubt a professional. Like they do. They think, well, and I've heard it. Well, this professional said this. Oh, that's stupid. They don't know what they're talking about. Oh, okay. And you do. They went to school and have major degrees in this stuff, and now you're telling me that they're stupid? Like, there are certain.
Well, their traits are pretty provincial like, when you look at it. They usually have the same way of dealing with things.
Right.
So they usually do come out with the same kind of toolkit. Eventually you start seeing like some stuff that's familiar. And you're like, oh, here we go. Here's that thing again that you said yesterday. Same words and everything.
Yeah.
Same sentence. Yep. Just applying it to a different thing.
Yep.
But yeah, I've had situations where in my family where somebody can sit down with a narcissist in the family and say, hey, you did this, you did that, you did this, you did that. And that person will sit and say, that's horrible. I didn't realize I did that to you. And I can't believe you remember this.
Right.
This is, and cry and everything.
Yes. Yeah.
And then call up someone else in the family and go, well, hey, I had to do it. I had to do these things because of the situation I was in and what people put me through. And, it's kind of like, oh, that's funny because you just sat and cried with this person telling them that you didn't realize it and you were really sorry about it. Now you're telling me, you're justifying it to me that you had to do it. So,
right.
This is a situation that went on with myself and my sister, with my mother, and it was something where she sat with my sister and went through a lot of my sister's childhood, and felt my sister was telling her, this is some stuff you did,
right?
And
like I thought at one point, hearing what narcissism was when I was, getting a little older, I thought maybe my mother was one, but here I'm going to tell a story. And when my mother, I think I was in my 30s. And my mother bought me all this Oreo cookie stuff. Like she bought me a cookie jar that was shaped like Oreo cookies and coffee cups that held Oreo cookies in the side. And so you had your cookies and milk. And because when I was a little kid, I loved Oreos, apparently. Yeah. And I don't remember this, but I remember she said, dunk your Oreo in the milk. And I'm like, no, I don't do that. Right. And she's like, you don't, you did. She goes, I'm going to tell you. And she starts telling me this story. And she starts crying. She tells me when I was a little kid and I dunked the Oreo in the milk, she screamed at me and she said, you were only little and you shook and you started crying. And she goes, I feel so horrible about that. That was so wrong for me to do. And I must have been, I don't know what the reason was I did it. She didn't make an excuse for it, but she explained to me and she cried. I mean, she cried hard. It's something that had bothered her for years. So she wanted me to dunk that fucking Oreo cookie in the milk. And she's like, but that story alone proved to me my mom was not a narcissist. She never made it a reason why she did it, right? There was not an excuse. She did something wrong. She was very apologetic about it. And I mean, I was in my 30s, and I don't even remember it happening, But apparently when she screamed at me, I shook, like if you could see me, I'm doing that little like baby shake, like, and then I started screaming, crying. And that's something that stuck with her for ever.
Right.
Did I just hear an air conditioner turn on over there?
No.
Oh.
I turned it completely off, so.
I hear a background fan. Am I hearing things?
It's actually very quiet here. I'm not hearing anything. But
good.
It could be just the fan in your head, Dave.
It could be it actually could be the air conditioner in my bedroom. Might have just kicked on.
Okay.
And I just, it probably did. So I can hear it. But I don't hear it through my microphone, apparently.
I cannot.
So, So that's a wonderful thing. So this is the wonders of doing live podcasts, see? And we like it. I love it. I mean,
I know you do. I'm not so much. I'm more of a let's get this out of there kind of thing, but that's all right.
Because, if we make a mistake, we make a mistake. And, we're not going to make mistakes. We're perfect podcasters.
Yeah, sure. We're perfect people, too.
Oh, yeah. Is that what happened? Okay.
And there's probably about 2 more on this because I started it late. So.
Oh, okay. So we're out of time today. We're actually gonna try to keep our podcast to a minimum, and see how that works better for you guys. Our podcasts have been an hour or so. Actually, last week's podcast was part 2 of so
of an hour and 20-minute podcast.
Yeah, so we split that into 2. And you'll have already seen that and heard that. But our next week's podcast is going to be really cool. You want to tell about the guest?
So I have a friend by the name of Bonnie, and she is her name is Bonnie in Windsor. She works at a facility for brain injury patients. She's like she works in She works with motor skills and all kinds of things for brain injury patients, people that have been through some type of brain trauma. And she works with them with cognitive therapy, meaning that, things down to somebody brushing their teeth and doing things where they have a routine every day, things like that. Anyway, she's going to come on and talk to us about the brain, how the brain works.
Which I'm going to love.
We're going to apply it to relationships. If you, if you are dealing with people in a relationship that you don't like or that are dangerous for you, that just basically the fate, we're going to challenge the fate and the this is meant to be theory.
Right.
And why you would chase people that are no good for you. Like exactly scientifically why.
Right.
You would go after someone who is really not in your best interest, who's going to do you harm.
And as you all know, I'm very, very excited about this because I love to talk about the human brain because I have training in psychological forensics, so I understand the way the brain works on a scientific level as opposed to an emotional level, right? So this is going to be a wonderful, wonderful podcast. You guys don't want to miss it, and it may end up being 2 parts too, because
it might be. I'm really bringing her into to completely validate and back up the science that we're talking about, so we can, we just want to make sure we get it correct.
Correct. Yeah.
And the effect that it has on your behavior, your activities, your decisions, with people in your life, especially romantic relationships.
Yes, because the cool thing we're going to talk about is that beginning part of a relationship where you actually release this chemical. We're not going to talk about it now. Not the chemical name.
Nope. But it's just called the honeymoon period.
Yeah, we call it the honeymoon period, and there is
which is one of our podcasts.
Yes, it is. It was a sample. It was a sample podcast, and we're going to get more into that because there is a time in the relationship where you are excreting a chemical in your brain that makes you attached to somebody. Now, it's supposed to be. They call it the love chemical because you have a certain period of time before you can fall in love. Or it takes time to fall in love, and this chemical kind of gets you through that initial stage. But it can also be very dangerous because it can also keep you in a bad relationship. So we're going to talk all about that next week. So we'll talk to you guys soon. I've been Dave.
I have been Lana.
And we still are, and we'll see you next week.
Bye-bye. Have a good one. Hey, you just listened to Love and Life with Lana and Dave. Thanks for joining us, and we hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please share the podcast, leave us a comment or review, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any new content. We'll see you soon.